What the fuck? I'm ready! Are you down?
First, you want to evaluate the situation. Is it a air on the fire situation? You want to make him apply his own tourniquet, or if you have the chance, you put it high and tight yourself. If not, it's a TFC situation, tactical field care. Comms is also very important. Before starting your procedure, to comms with the medical evacuation so they can come as soon as possible. How do you detect a massive bleeding? A pool of blood or a lot of blood which is pulsing out with a radial flow. Once you get to the massive bleeding, you want to make him or yourself with your knee maybe, or if he's awake, make him apply pressure to the wound so less blood flows out. Second of all, you want to prioritize tourniquets over combat gauze. Since combat gauze takes longer to apply, tourniquets are 7 seconds of work and then you're done. If you've come to the victim and you have not spotted the massive bleeding yet, the blood sweep is the first thing you're gonna do in the end. How does the blood sweep work? You're gonna check his legs, his arms, and his neck. You check, you look at your hands, you continue to sweep, look at your hands. So, I've spotted the blood. This is a crucial element which a lot of people forget. I don't want to be too focused with this blood. It might be a gunshot wound, and the exit wound is more up, meaning that if I apply the tourniquet above this wound, I will not get the exit wound. So first of all, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna cut open his pants to check where the wound is and where the blood flows. Okay, so I spotted the bleeding is here. Yeah, I check around it, maybe there's a different something. If not, I'm gonna apply my tourniquet. Everything under the growing, where you can apply your tourniquet, that's where you're gonna apply your tourniquet. You want to apply it a fist above the wound or a fist above the joint if there is a joint in the space of the fist. I always keep one loose tourniquet and one regular prepped tourniquet for these situations, since it might be difficult to get around his boots if he has lowas on. So again, I check the fist above the wound if this was the wound. And another thing, you don't want anything in between this. So for example, in a care on the fire situation in which you're doing high and tight and you don't have time to open up the pants, you check his pockets. Does he have anything in his pockets? If yes, remove it, because this might make the tourniquet fill, since there is a space in between. For the tourniquet, I apply it, I put it on as tight as I can, here already. Once I've applied it very tight, I'm going to turn it, and you see how tight it is already? Yeah. You see how tight it is already? Okay, so now I'm gonna put the tourniquet like this, put the tape over it. In this case I won't do it, but you write down the time in which you applied it. This might be very useful for later, in which they might do a tourniquet conversion, and I write it on his forehead. That's just how I do it. Once you tight it, you're gonna look at his bleeding, if it has stopped or not. So, you can't apply a tourniquet to the wound. You have spotted he has a massive bleeding, for example in his groin area, or here in his armpits, or his neck. You're gonna apply combat gauze. How do you apply combat gauze? We're going more into specifics on every single letter in our exclusive videos. But for now, you take this small tip from me, put it under your plate carrier. That way, you don't have to hold it awkwardly. You scoop out a little bit of blood to see where the hole is exactly. Yeah, you always push it towards his heartbeat, so that's up in this case. In this case, it would be towards there. I've spotted it, I put it there. You continue to apply pressure. Yeah, with your thumbs, and also the part which you just used to scoop out the blood, don't re-put that in, keep it on the side. Now, I'm done. You apply pressure for 3 minutes. 3 minutes are done, you check If it's all filled with blood, it means it hasn't worked. What do you do in that situation? You pull it all out and start over again. Same thing. If it has stopped, I'm gonna apply emergency bandage. Again, we'll go over all the topics more in detail in our exclusive videos. But for now, to not make this video 30 minutes long, I've put my emergency bandage. This is it. And I'm gonna continue my blood sweep. So, I again check very good. And check also in here. I check his neck. Again, very important to not miss the details. Same thing for the leg. A lot of people miss is first of all here, obviously. But also in the socks. Okay, and then we move on to the 8. I'll ask him to open his mouth. I check if there's any liquid such as blood. In that case, I will have to remove it with a gauze. In this case, he's awake, so I'll ask him to spit it out to his side. If he isn't awake, it's always of the essence to put in an MPA or an OPA. These two. But you want to apply this one if he doesn't have any damage on his face. So if he has, for example, a broken nose, you don't want to put in this. You will go on to this one. This goes through the mouth. If your victim is unconscious, do a chin lift and jaw thrust to inspect his airway and make sure it's clear. Keep in mind not to move the victim around too much if the incident which happened could have led to neck damage. Okay, so next step is respiration. You want to look, feel, and hear his breathing. So I'll put my head here. I'll put my hand like this and I'll listen if he has any wheezing or different signs which may be helpful for me to assess. For example, if he has a pneumothorax, if my patient has burns in his throat or has something stuck in his throat. This is also the first time you actually find out if your patient is dead or not. The reason for that is because if he has a massive bleeding, that's the first thing you treat. Because if you try to bring him back to life and he's bleeding out, he will still die. In case he's not breathing, what you want to do is you want to place 2 ARS needles into the side of his ribs. One left, one right. We'll go more into that again on how to use these because I can make a video 40 minutes long about March. So we'll make it more in depth on our exclusive videos. In short, you want to place it on the sides between his 5th and 6th rib. And if you're going to do it under the clavicula, you want to put it between the 2nd and 3rd rib. If that didn't work, it means you have to go on to reanimation. Reanimate? Do you say it? Okay, reanimate, guys. We know that he's breathing. If he is breathing increasingly more rapid and he is really grasping for air, it might be a symptom of a pneumothorax. That means that you have to place a ARS needle to let the air out of the lungs. So how do you detect that? You're gonna place 2 hands on his chest and you will feel one chest moving up and the other not, or much less than the other. That means that's an indication of where the pneumothorax is. Next thing you can do is you can lift up the shirt to see maybe if he has a blue spot, maybe he has been hit by something, shrapnel, etc. If that's not the case, we'll move on to searching his chest for wounds. Very important, just like the blood sweep, be very curious. It's very easy. For example, with him, he has a lot of hair. He looks like a gorilla. Very important to be curious. What you want to do is you want to do it in sections. Just as the blood sweep, you're going to stretch out the skin. Because if, for example, a 5.56 bullet, the entry wound is very small. You can't detect it if you don't pry out the skin. Especially if somebody is fat, then it's going to be very difficult to find the bullet hole. Also in the armpit, don't forget his back. From his belly button up until about here, his clavicula, you want to apply a chest seal. In chest seals, in the packing of the chest seals, you usually have 2. One may have a valve and the other one might not have a valve. So if you find a entry wound, for example, from a bullet, don't panic, finish your whole search of his whole chest, so also his back, because the the exit wound might be much bigger and you want to apply the valve on the bigger wound. I'm gonna apply my chest seal. I clean it. Yeah, I see the wound is here. I put it on and apply it like this. Yeah, now it's applied. Now take a breather. We have arrived at the circulation. MAR are the most crucial parts. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check everything which I have applied. I would have checked the tourniquet. Is it still good? If it's not, I restart the whole process. If he has a bleeding and it hasn't stopped, I'm gonna restart the whole process, MAR, and then arrive back to the scene. That's the same thing if my victim is going unconscious. It may mean that I've missed something, for example, bleeding in his ass, because not a lot of people want to check each other's asses. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check his pulse. I'm gonna put my arm here, and I'm gonna put my 2 fingers in between here. If I feel his pulse, that's good, because that means that he hasn't lost a lot of blood, since you know how it works. If you have lost a lot of blood and your body is trying to survive, it pushes all the blood into the vital triangle. If that's the case, that means he is in a shock, a blood shock. This is crucial because the medevac has to keep that into account. We'll cover blood transfusions as well in different videos. And I'm gonna see if he's alert, verbal, unconscious, etc. I'm gonna give him a little bit of a pain per call. If he's unconscious, his body will still react to that. That's also very important for me to pass on to the medevac. Now we have arrived at the H. Hypothermia is crucial. Keep your patient alive. While you have lost a lot of blood, your body is gonna struggle with keeping a good temperature. Really focus on hypothermia during the whole protocol. If you have a buddy, put him on a transport cart, put him off the ground. What's crucial, you put a blizzard around him, you cover his head, remove him from the elements, rain, wind, etc. Also wet clothes. For example, if you had a massive bleeding over here, this is all wet. What you want to do is you want to remove that. In future videos, we'll cover the others of the March protocol, in which we will cover head injuries, eyes, medication, fractures, burn wounds, etc. We will not do it in this video since it's gonna take too long. A few tips from me, this is the last chapter. Continue to talk with him, tell him what you're doing, ask him questions, he may give information. Another tip for me is make him transport ready for if the medical evacuation comes, you're already ready to drop him in and load him up and bring him to a medical center. Use your buddy is another tip from mine. I'm obviously alone, but if you have a buddy, you can already work on the transportation, you can work on the medical field card, etc. If you've completed the process, your whole March protocol, it's very important to keep the protocol going. So keep checking the vitals, keep checking massive bleedings, etc. Talk to your victim so you don't miss anything out and you make yourself useful at that time. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Any other topics you would like to see us discuss, just leave them down in the comments. And also any questions you may have from this video, just put them in the comments, we'll answer every single one of them. Until next time.